Welcome in Lokayat, which is our channel for oral history discussion group. Amarjit ji, please tell us about your background and how did you come to UK? What were the reasons and when did it happen?
Okay, thank you. I came to UK in 1966. My father and my older brother had arrived here in 1962 as part of the voucher system, and that was the number of people from the Ravidasi community arrived here because we had two Dalit civil servants in the passport office.
Okay.
Obviously, kindness of Dr B R Ambedkar on reservation. And that is part of the reason why we have so many Dalit families in England. So we have something to be grateful to.
So you came in 1963?
I came in 1966. My father was here in 1962.
Okay.
I came with the rest of the family, with my mother and with 5 sisters.
Okay.
Yes.
And your father was working in the army?
My father was in the pre-47 British Army and also in the Indian Army.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had to resign his job in the army and come here. And sometimes he used to grumble. He would say, you know, people are left behind. Some of them are not. Many of them are in the post of a colonel. Okay. And look at me. And I would say to him, but Dad, we have done better in other ways, you know. And what other way I had in mind actually was that he was able to look into the history of our people, the Ravidasi community, and do research on Ravidas. And of course, my own interest in the history of the caste system. So what I was saying to him was, money isn't always important, or position isn't always important, or the status, or even if nobody knows you who you are, but it's the ideas that you contribute to the society.
But it's very interesting point that you mentioned. Was he a commissioned officer?
I don't even know his rank actually. I think he was a Nayak. That's all he was at the time. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think because he knew English and he knew Arabic and Farsi, I think he went to a madrasa school. Well, they actually had to go some 7 kilometers to a school, and they had to sit outside. They weren't allowed to sit inside with other children. And I suppose my father was quite intelligent, so he managed to pick up. And so was my senior uncle, who actually ended up as a quite high civil servant in Delhi. But that's another story. But then other members of the family didn't do so well, you know. So some of the extended family members are still working in the field in India. So it's a very, very kind of diverse background. Yes.
So how old were you when the family came here?
I was 16.
So must be.
So I did 2 years of schooling here. Sorry, I was 14, and then I did 2 years schooling. And after that, because the family was too poor, 5 sisters to sort of marry off. I could not pursue my dream of going to the university, so I took an apprenticeship in the foundries and factories of West Midland. Foundries especially were very dirty and dangerous places. And I did my 5 years apprenticeship, and then I decided that I would go to university. Not so much for further learning of engineering, but I wanted to actually study at university and also take part in other activities. And in 76, I was elected the president of the Birmingham University India Society and the editor of their journal called Bharat. And this was just after emergency period, and we bought this magazine to educate people about what was going on in India. And it was the first time an article on Ambedkar had appeared in any university journal. Up to that point, nobody had taken any notice of Babasaheb. And I obviously felt it was quite wrong.
So in 1976, when emergency was there was not much consideration about the issues of Dalits.
That's correct.
At least in the political mainstream circles. How long were you in the university?
I was there 3 years, but this was my final year effort. I was elected in 76, and that's when I did it. Yes.
But whenever we discussed about UK and the issues of prejudices that are still among the Indian diaspora, how was it that you got elected? Because you must have got elected with all the students, irrespective of the caste or in the Birmingham University.
It's a very funny situation. There was strong casteism in the foundries, in the factories. For example, the Dalits would be relegated to cleaning the toilets. All the best jobs would be monopolized by the Jat Sikhs.
Okay.
They had this kind of a monopoly, and they would deny it because many of them worked in the Indian Workers Association, and I did too later on, right? But there was this setup whereby the younger people in the IWA or Indian Workers Association were from Dalit background, many of them, and the older ones were from Jat Sikh background. There was this dichotomy, there was this tension in there. So the caste prejudice was there, even amongst the left, and that was always the issue, you know, with the left. Funny enough, up to the point before the women arrived from India, people, because they were isolated, because they were in a strange country, because they didn't have jobs, good housing, they didn't earn that much money, they would get together and they would tend to overlook the caste prejudices because that was the need of the hour. You know, you might have friends across caste boundaries. You might actually, one person might be sleeping in a bed, and then when that person finished and went to the factory for work, you might be sleeping in the same bed. You might have a Dalit cooking for a Jat Sikh or the other way around. And it was, cooperation all around. But when people got a bit of money and they started to buy their own houses, and the women arrived from India, and women also have a vested interest in keeping the caste system going, although they're oppressed. And this reminds me of Babasaheb's Hindu Code Bill, when he thought that the upper caste women would help him. But this did not happen, because the upper caste women also have a vested interest in keeping the caste system going. So similarly here, when the Jat Sikh women arrived from India, they then pressurized their men folks into not being friendly with Dalits, etc. And of course, then people started to get married. So if you were marrying your children, you would get a partner from India, from the same caste. There was absolutely no way anybody was going to consider breaking that barrier. You know, whatever cooperation was there, but it was limited to, as dictated by the necessities of living in this country in the earlier days.
Yeah, that is one point that I always say, that people come to West not just to respect its culture and democratic value system, but from our own necessities, and we want to create our own confined world, which is actually happening even today.
Yes.
When we come to a country like UK, which where first generation people came in 1950s actually.
Yes.
And even there, being a citizen of this country for over 70, 80 years, we are still finding, their outreach not beyond their own communities and caste.
Yes, and the reason is we are not disconnected from India. We have a number of links with India. There's still marriages, etc., that take place. People go back to India for various things, whether they are inheritance of property or whether you have relatives or attending weddings. And people come to this country. So in the age of internet, caste is still there. We are just a reflection of what goes on in India, but in a different setting. The earlier generation thought we will work here a few years, and of course that didn't happen. Now, just coming back to your earlier question, how did I get elected? Well, first of all, I didn't fit the stereotype image of a Dalit. Secondly, if I may say so, be immodest, I was very intelligent. I was studying things at the time. I was looking at history of India. I was an engineer, but I was looking at history of India. I was looking at history of China. I had many friends from Hong Kong, Singapore, etc. And I was trying to learn Mandarin Chinese. I had knowledge about India, and a lot of the people around me, the Indian students, didn't have that much knowledge.
So that you had basically a very diverse group of people beyond Indians.
Yes, and I think many of them never dreamed that I was a Dalit.
Yeah.
I didn't go around shouting that. They knew that I was quite anti-caste, but I think many of them put it down to the fact that I had a Sikh name, Amarjit Singh. So they thought, well, that's...
But there are two kind of people. One kind of person who hide their caste identity, other who just go on and on and on, and you didn't fit in.
I was in the
them.
middle. Yeah.
Because neither are you proclaiming a victimhood,
No.
nor you are just hiding your identity.
No, I mean, I am what I am, and I think because my ideas were fairly progressive. I mean, if I talk to people and I said, well, why is Mrs. Gandhi throwing these judges and lawyers into jail? That is wrong. India is a democratic country. And they related to that. And I think they didn't really care about the fact that an article on Ambedkar had appeared in the journal. To them, that was something, it was there in India.
But what was the article about?
The title of the article was 100 Million Untouchables Need an Ambedkar.
Okay.
So it started off from a quotation from Manusmriti. What were the how did Manu see Chandals?
Okay.
That Chandal is meant to live in cremation grounds. His only property shall be dogs and donkeys, that he shall eat from broken pots, and he shall wear discarded clothes, things like that. And then it started off saying this is from the Manusmriti, and there are 100 million untouchables, and this is how the caste system came to existence, and this is what is going on in India at the moment. I don't think many people knew what it was all about. I mean, they all knew there was such a thing as caste and that you didn't marry across the caste boundary, but I don't think they knew exactly what the problem was.
Yeah, but it is very surprising that in India, when we talk about anti-caste movement, one of the things we felt that there were local traditions, and one of the local tradition was one of the most influential was Guru Nanak.
Right.
And people say that Nanaka actually formed Sikhism as a revolt against Brahminism.
Right.
But when I come to UK, I found, and many people said, and this is not my statement, but on record, is that a contradictory statement that casteism exists among Sikhism?
No, casteism does exist. Casteism does exist amongst the Sikhs. Casteism doesn't exist in theory; it exists in practice. Now, what we must remember is this: that there have been currents in Indian history. When Sikh movement started with Guru Nanak, prior to that, there were the Nathasiddhas, who have their roots in Buddhism. Sikh tradition actually antithetical to Nathasiddhas. They don't believe in leaving the family. The Sikhs believe in working within the family. That is one of the major differences. Otherwise, there are a lot of similarities. Even in the philosophical ways, for example, the great void, shunyata, shunya, sun in Punjabi, that word you will find in Guru Granth Sahib. And it has more or less the same kind of meaning, although many Sikh scholars will say it doesn't mean the same thing, but it does. A lot of the things, the Nathasiddhas, the Naths don't recognize the caste, they revere the Guru, they eat meat, they have the langar, and all these traditions are actually continuation of the same. Now, when Sikhism started, its supporters were mostly Khatri traders. Because all the Sikh gurus came from the Khatri caste.
Different kind.
United front of the rising traders, the Khatris, and the Jats, and the low caste, and Dalits. So it was a united front against feudalism. And if we look at the areas where Sikhism was strong, you can almost draw a line from Punjab down to Rajasthan to Gujarat that way. Sindh, and then you can go from Patna, Bihar to Bengal. At one time, Bengal and Bihar were the main areas for Sikhism. So these are the trading routes, and historically these are the same routes as Buddhism. So there are these similarities, and the Jats played an important role militarily in the earlier stage of Sikhism. Because Dalits did not come to Sikhism in the earlier stages. They have their own tradition. For example, Ravidas and Kabir, who are senior to Guru Nanak Dev, right? And of course, the Vani of these two is included in the Sikh gurus. It is only when we got to the stage where the 10th Guru, Guru Gobind Singh, fought a number of battles with the Mughal forces, and he lost each and every one of those.
Yeah.
But that is not the point. The point is that he showed that the Mughal oppression could be resisted. And when he appointed Banda Bahadur as the commander-in-chief of the Sikh army, and this is the important point.
Yeah, yeah.
And Banda had his own following before he met Guru Gobind Singh. And this is when the Dalits, the leather workers, the sweepers, tanners,
After
carpenters,
Banda Bahadur.
blocks,
After Banda Bahadur.
at the time of Banda Bahadur, they flocked to him in great numbers. And he was then able to inflict heavy losses on the Mughal Empire. This is what the Guru Gobind Singh promised to the Sikhs, that he will give them sovereignty. That was the promise that Guru Gobind Singh gave. And it was Banda Bahadur who delivered it.
Why I'm saying is because the important point is this, is Banda Bahadur now is being used by
He
the
is.
RSS.
Yes.
Because that is where the whole, we have a big statue of him in Delhi now.
Yes.
And one day Sikh driver was taking me,
Yes.
and he was telling me, look, this man is one of the greatest person. He fought against the Mughals. So everywhere the binary of Muslim.
Right. But then I must also point out that there were Muslims who had become Sikhs, and these were probably poor Muslims. So don't forget that the Mughals did not operate just simply as Muslims. They had Hindu generals. They had Hindu Rajas.
So Mughals were actually different ethnic identities, not
It is no different. So, of course, the appropriation is here. But the main point here is that Banda Bahadur was betrayed by the Sikhs themselves. There are any number of books written by Sikh scholars themselves. I have them here on the shelf.
Okay.
On Banda Bahadur.
Yeah. Okay.
And he was betrayed by the Jats.
And what was it?
Well, it was coming to this stage where the Mughals were offering them jagirs.
Okay, to Sikhs.
Yes, this was the way to sort of dampen the movement.
Okay.
And of course, the people who were not Dalits or low caste, they felt that if this carried on, see, Banda Bahadur actually redistributed the land. The Jimidari, the curse of the Jimidari system was lifted from Punjab.
Achha.
If you look at Irfan Habib and Garewal's book, which is on the primary sources on Sikhism, there are quotations from the contemporary historians who say that you had to be sweeper or low caste. You joined his army, and after a short while, if you had the merit, you could be appointed a governor of a district. You went there with the Hukumnama with you, and nobody would dare to speak a word against you, because this is what the Banda Bahadur had done to the social system in Punjab.
Okay. How has this been broken now, and why? When the condition of Dalits and particularly the Madhavis and both the Chamars in Punjab, that they are compelled to make their own gurudwaras, and not just in Punjab, but even if they are coming to UK, or I've traveled to Africa and saw different kind of gurudwaras from Punjab.
Yes. You see, when Banda Bahadur was betrayed, then of course the massacre followed of his followers. Some still managed to survive. For example, the Valmiki Sikhs, right? They're one group who had survived, although many of them were massacred within the precincts of the Golden Temple itself.
Okay.
And what came after was that the Sikhs decided to accept jagirs from the Mughals, and by the time Ranjit Singh had conquered the whole of Punjab, had integrated all the missiles under his kingdom, the feudal system, the feudal jagir system that he put in place was exactly the same as it was during the Mughal rule.
So you mean to say that when after the Sikhs kingdom revived under Ranjit Singh,
even before that, under the missile system, when you had the bands of Sikhs and you had their chiefs, they had already decided to cooperate with the Mughals. And so, bit by bit, they had, conquered, if you like, or claimed their territory. And the only model that was available to them was that of a feudal model. And of course, it was in their interest to actually grab as much land as they could.
So Ranjit Singh, who is considered to be the biggest and one of the tallest Sikh kings, could not do anything or did not do anything, both.
Why would he have done anything?
To eliminate the feudalism or feudal system or caste system?
He was part of the feudalism. He was part of the caste system. He did not abolish caste. This is the hypocrisy, you see. He could pretend that he was a good Sikh, although even he wasn't a good Sikh because he drank and beside other things, he had a Muslim mistress. But that's beside the point. The point is that he had a feudal kingdom. The point is that even prior to his time and during his time, there was such a thing as Sanatani Sikhi, which was more or less another name for Hinduized Sikhism, whereby the caste system would be accepted completely.
Okay.
Yes.
So that Hinduized Sikhism is actually the Sikhism that we are witnessing today.
Yes, that is what it is. The Sikh of the Sikhi of the 10th Guru and of Guru Nanak and Banda Bahadur has gone completely. What we are seeing now is a kind of a hypocrisy, whereby the same kind of feudal relations or semi-feudal relations are in operation. The same kind of oppressive caste system is there, but the Sikhs, majority of them will swear that Sikhism is anti-caste. Historical Sikhism was anti-caste. Guru Nanak was anti-caste. Guru Gobind Singh was anti-caste. He had promised that he would deliver to the meek.
Yes.
You see, but after the death of Banda Bahadur, that's when the rot set in, and that's when the chiefs decided that they would cooperate with the Mughals. That's when they decided that they would bring in the caste system, by one way or the other, and make it look like as if nothing had changed. This is the most surprising thing: is if outsider was to read about Guru Nanak and other Sikh gurus, he would think that there is no caste amongst the Sikhs. In fact, the Jat Sikhs are the major dominant caste in Punjab.
Yeah, the Jats then, the same actually.
Yes.
In Haryana and western part of Uttar Pradesh.
Yes.
And even Rajasthan.
Yes.
And if we see the violence against Dalits in these regions,
yes,
perhaps this is much more inflicting and much more powerful than in any other parts of the country.
That is correct. But of course, you can't say all Sikhs are the same.
No,
because there are Dalit Sikhs, there are so-called low caste Sikhs.
No, obviously, we can't generalize, but this is a kind, we are talking about the institutions.
Yes.
When these institutions build up, the institution of caste and institution of feudalism.
It has been, caste has been institutionalized,
yes,
but without the label on it.
Yes.
In theory, there is nothing to stop a Dalit going up there and be on the Prabandhak committee of the Golden Temple. But in practice, we find that this is not going to happen. Even at the village level, it's not going to happen. But
even in the Prabandhak committee, where are they?
Exactly.
It's very in Punjab, when the whole the Ravidasi community was asking about their rights, they were not even allowed.
Exactly. You see, in theory, on paper, everybody is equal. In practice, it's exactly the same thing as the Hindu system. No, Sikhism is being kind of appropriated in some ways.
So one point that when we talk about religion as a emancipatory method for Dalit or liberation theology for Dalit, do you agree that because what happened is that now we have found initially many people suggested that Dr. Ambedkar wanted to embrace Sikhism. That many people, because everybody is using Ambedkar according to the own conveniences.
Correct.
Many people said that he wanted to embrace Islam.
Right.
Many people say, oh, he was in touch with the Christian missionaries. Now, among the diaspora, you will find Ravidasi is asking for a separate identity. The Valmiki is asking for a separate identity. And there is the Ambedkarite group of people who say that Buddhism is the only identity that Babasaheb Ambedkar wanted people.
Right.
What do you think about all these different layers? Because if religion is an emancipatory identity or emancipatory tool for the emancipation or for the rights of Dalits, then do you think it has succeeded or it doesn't need now?
I think you have to look back at history and you have to ask the question, what is religion? Is religion something which stands above society, or is religion part and parcel of society? Does religion go with state power? Does it go with politics? And how do religious movements start? And how do they get taken over? And how do they end up? these are very, very important questions. Now, in India, because Dalits had very little space for struggle, most of the resistance to Varna system actually came in the form of religion.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that was the alternative Sharma tradition, whether it was Buddhism, whether it was Lokaitic tradition. Well, Lokaitic wasn't religion; that was anti-religion, was atheistic religion. But that tradition died out or was killed off. But after that, everything that came had this religious flavor. You could not openly, in many instances, preach against the caste system because that was too dangerous to do so.
Yes.
So these ideas had to be clothed in religious terminology. They had to be shown to be not so harmful. There were exceptions. There were people. It depended on the time and place. So anti-caste current in India always had this religious flavor to it. And so to ignore religion would be to ignore the history of Dalits themselves, which I think would be unfair, to ignore Buddhism.
Yes.
Many people have criticized Buddhism for many different, to many different reasons, and a lot of these are true, but that is not the point. The point is, Buddhism was a progressive undercurrent compared to Vedic Hinduism. So
but
historically,
just
it was progressive.
Just compared to Vedic Hinduism or compared to any other religion?
Well, what other religion were there? There was Jainism, yes?
Yes.
In India. There were the Ajivkas who have been killed off, and they believed in, if you like, in determinism, in Niyati. Yeah, it's a fateful thing, it will be like
but
that.
I'm talking about the current situation.
Oh, I know. I'm coming to current situation in a sort of long way.
Yeah.
Then we have the Natha Siddha tradition, who doesn't believe in the caste system, who believe that the human body is everything. It is not the ideas. It is not some Sanatana idea, some Vedic idea. It is the body that is important. And to the Buddhists, the body was also important, but mind was just as important, if not more important, than the body. So these currents are philosophically anti-caste, as are the Natha Siddhas.
Yes.
Then are the Bhaktas, who use, take classic example of Ravidas. Now, if you don't understand Ravidas, you think that he is being Upanishadic in his thinking or in his philosophy. It's nothing like that. He is using Upanishadic philosophy to beat Upanishadic philosophy. It's rather like Shankaracharya, who used Buddhist dialectics to beat Buddhism. Ravidas is doing exactly the same thing. What he's saying is, if everything is Brahma, then we are all Brahma. And if God is ocean, and then I'm a wave. And if God is an ornament, I am raw gold. So what he's doing is he's challenging the whole system. He's not only being subversive, he's going further than that. So we cannot ignore Ravidas either. We cannot ignore the Sikh Gurus. We cannot ignore Babasaheb's Buddhism.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants to become a Muslim, I myself have written articles in the 80s when the conversion at Meenakshipuram happened. I defended that. It doesn't mean that ultimately the religious identity is the most important. It isn't. But if it helps people to advance the struggle even few inches, then I'm in favor of it.
See, there are two sides of it. One, religion as a human right.
Yes.
So, as a person's individual choice, I think there is no difference between us, that people have a right to follow what they wish.
Yes.
But what I am saying is further that when people converted to various faiths and still the tag of Dalit remained with them,
it will always remain with them.
And what happened now? This case is in the courts, in Supreme Court, where the Dalits, Muslims, and Dalit Christians are seeking reservation for them. But the government does not acknowledge and doesn't want to acknowledge, and in fact, actually deliberately trying to create a between Dalit, Muslim, and Dalit kind of a thing. Oh, Dalits are Hindus, so Hindu Dalits will get reservation, and the other Dalit, or Buddhist and Sikh Dalit, will get reservation, because in the broader scheme of things for RSS, Buddhism and Ravidasi or Sikhism are part of Indian culture or Hindu culture, to be very candid. They want to make Buddha, they have already made Buddha as a part of the ninth incarnation of Vishnu. But when the question comes of Islam and Christianity, they put they're standing in front of the court and saying that, look, when the caste system is there in these religions, then why you individually or particularly target Hinduism? That is one that argument. That Islam and Christianity doesn't have it, then why does it exist? So the target is against also the conversion. They say if you are converting and still facing the same thing, then why are you converting? But our side of the story is that we want that Dalit identity become more important. And they face it there also because there are Brahmin Christians and upper caste Muslims also, even Brahmin Muslims. So the court has to see in that way that they're facing discrimination, because if one set of Dalits are getting reservation, other set of not getting, then it's a violation on the basis of their faith.
Yes. But you see, again, you have to look at it in a wider perspective. Conversion is good in the short run.
Yeah.
Conversion is not the final solution. Identity politics is not the final solution. The identity politics tag is used different ways by different people. No,
Yeah.
I went to Punjab. I was a visitor at the Punjab Research Group, and somebody said, I'm not very happy with the identity politics. And I put my hands up and I said, it's because you Jat Sikhs have an identity and you want to deny it to us Dalits. I too have an identity.
Yes.
My people were there before Sikhism came on the scene. My people were there in Indus Valley, which you never discuss in Punjab Research Group.
Yes.
So, in that sense, identity is important.
Yeah.
Historical identity
actually
is important.
Yeah.
As regarding the reservation issues, that of course, the seeds of that go right the way back to Pune Pact and separate representation, which were never granted. So Babasaheb were given this poisonous chalice by Gandhi, Gandhi's blackmail. And we are living with the consequences of this.
Yes.
And my attitude is, if a Dalit wants, or a Bahujan wants to convert to another religion, we will not oppose it. We will support it. But we'll go further and we'll say, this is a very short term,
this is a very
not even
individual
a solution. It's an individual solution. Yes. If it helps you to break the mental bondage, then it is good. But do recognize the limitations. At the end of the day, you have to reach out and unite with people who are similarly oppressed as you are. So, in my personal life, one of the things that I had done, I am from Ravidasi community, but I worked actively with the Valmiki community. Okay. So much so that some of them thought I was a Valmiki.
Yes.
They did not think I was Ravidasi. They thought I was Valmiki.
Yes.
And I can tell you there are Valmiki families who have Christian, Muslims, inverted comma, Hindus and Sikhs in the family.
Yes.
And nobody argues about it. And that is the way
it's never a problem with them. That I've realized it, because they were like Lal Begis, they were Christian Valmikis in the North India, in the South.
Yes.
And for them it is not an issue. It becomes an issue for the outsiders.
It is an issue for the outsiders because they want to split us up into all these, tag us with all these identities. I think our identity at the end of the day is that of being Dalits, that of being followers of Babasaheb Ambedkar, and that of followers of any progressive trend that may be there in the world. Yes.
That is also important when we are discussing the issue here in UK, where there are a lot of questions between the Valmikis and Ravidasis and the Buddhist community.
Yes.
And a lot of kind of conflicting positions.
Yes.
And either people don't want to discuss them, or people have very negative opinion about each other.
Yes, there is a reason for that. You must not forget that the Indian government is not passive in United Kingdom.
Yes.
It has its people in almost every organization, even left-wing organization.
Yeah.
Yes. And so we are a reflection here of what goes on in India. So it is in the interest of the anti-Dalit forces to split the communities into different groups and keep these differences going, sometimes antagonistically. For 30, 40 years, I have fought against these so-called Ambedkarite attacks. They are not true Ambedkarite attacks on Ravidas. The Ravidasis were called backward, they were called reactionary, and Guru Ravidas, was kind
Oh,
of
he was
slandered,
oh.
right? And of course, they have stopped doing that now, because in India now, the Dalit Bahujans have got together, and of course, there will be efforts by the Hinduattvas to appropriate all of our icons. I mean, I don't know whether they are appropriating Bhagat Singh or not, but they are. They are. I suspect that they are, right? Yes. But if you read Bhagat Singh's writing on Dalits, it is beautiful.
Absolutely.
These are still valid. So my attitude is this: it doesn't matter what happens in India, how much effort BJP and RSS devote to appropriating all these icons. These icons, they can split up, they can cook them in a pot, they can eat it, and they can try to digest it. But what will happen is that they will not be able to digest these icons.
Yes.
These icons will split open the belly of Hinduism, and they will come out.
They
cannot be digested. In the past, this has been the story of Hinduatva. It's appropriation, attack, appropriation, digestion. But the contradictions are now developed to a certain extent that this kind of modus operandi will no longer work in the long run.
Yeah, but
in the short run, yes.
I agree with
in the
your
long
point.
run,
Absolutely agree with your point that whether they try to appropriate Ambedkar or Bhagat Singh or Phule or anybody else, it won't be possible for them. They're trying actually to put. They're not interested in Ambedkar or Bhagat Singh as their ideological point of view. They are interested to present them as a reformer or a champion of the. Bhagat Singh is presented as Jat Sikh.
Yes.
Ambedkar is a reformer of Hinduism.
But of course, Bhagat Singh was an atheist.
Yeah. So
right? He wrote this famous pamphlet called "Why I'm an Atheist."
Yes. So
and then of course Udham Singh is portrayed as Jat Sikh. But then when he was arrested, he gave his name as Ram Muhammad Singh Azad.
I think what an ideologically strong person he was. Today, actually, we are converting him in a small identity.
No, it is the job of the progressive forces in India, progressive intellectuals, to bring these facts out to the public. Now, I was reading the other day that the RSS organizer has said that there are nefarious efforts afoot to combine Ambedkarism and Marxism.
Yes.
This is something they're most afraid of.
That is
already Marxism had been, if you go back to the history of India, when you look at Dange and you look at the Nodipad and you look at others, right? They have done their very best to mislead people, to kind of appropriate Marxism and to digest it. Neither Ambedkarism nor Marxism can be appropriated or digested in this manner. What will happen in the future is that these currents are now coming together. We don't have a systematic theoretical framework where we can bring the two together. But it will happen in the future.
It's a very important point you raised. It's not just the RSS saying that many of our intellectuals have a very abhorrence of talking about Marx, and that's a very sad part.
That's understandable.
And what I am saying, if Ambedkarism or Marxism has to meet, or have to ally, they will have to ally in a separate, without losing their own identities and their own.
You have to ask the question. What is this Ambedkarite identity? What is this Marxist identity? What is Marxism about? What is Ambedkarism about? Now, according to Marx, there are contradictions everywhere.
Yes.
Everywhere you look. And the trick is to use these contradictions for mankind's progress. What is Ambedkarism about? If you look at his book, Riddles in Hinduism, he's talking about all the contradictions in Hinduism.
Yes.
Economic contradiction, gender contradiction, caste contradictions, everything. Now, what is his aim? His aim is to actually progress the struggle. Now, you can visualize these two as standing in contradiction to each other. But it is only a knee-deep contradiction. If you look at Marxism, Marx lays emphasis on economic aspects. But he does not ignore, or Marx and Engels do not ignore, the factors in the superstructure. As a matter of fact, people like Lenin and Mao, they say that there comes a time when the superstructure can become so important it becomes the primary thing to attack. And isn't this what we are saying in India? And didn't Isn't this what Ambedkar said in 1937, 38, or thereabouts?
Yeah, you see, in India, proper fight was not between the Marxism. It was actually the Brahminical Marxists destroyed Marxism in India.
Yes.
And
They tried to destroy Marxism
yeah,
in
they
India.
tried actually because.
But no, there's a demand by the people.
Yes, yes.
From bottom up. They're saying the slogans, crude as they may be, are being given.
Mhm.
These are crude slogans, and in many instances, these are superficial slogans.
Yeah.
Because Dalits have been betrayed so often, they don't know what to trust, what to believe.
Yeah,
and that is understandable. But in the long run, it's accepted that either one of these solutions on its own is not going to work.
Yeah, see.
And you are not only going to struggle against Hinduatva, you are also going to struggle against people who misrepresent, who distort Marxism, people who misrepresent and distort Ambedkar's philosophy.
Yeah, see, that is a very, very important point that you have mentioned. Actually, what is happening at the moment, our energies are actually targeted against defining about others. Brahminism and Brahminical system or capitalist mode of things and capitalism or imperialism. But what we are actually somewhere lacking and what Babasaheb did was critiquing Hindutva or Brahminism. But he was providing an alternative model also.
Yes.
What is happening in today's time is we are using Babasaheb Ambedkar of 1930s, who is all speaking about, annihilation of caste and this and that kind of thing, but not of the 1940s, when he was giving you the defining things. This is my way of life. I want to lead this, where he is putting some constructive work also. Educational institutions, sending people abroad, working with the community, talking about their rights. So this second part, where we should have been more into the building of the society, because I personally feel unless internally a society is strong, discussing about the contradiction of Brahminism will not work, because there is much more contradiction among our own self in the communities, in Dalit,
they're
Bahujan.
everywhere. Contradictions are everywhere.
But if we don't, see, Mao said one thing, it's very interesting. V.T. Rajasekhar used to, he gave me one, and all the time he would say, "Oh, Rawat, you get this."
Yes, yes.
He says there are two contradictions, major. One is a major contradiction, and other are the smaller contradictions, which is minor contradictions.
Yes.
So minor contradiction would be a brother and a brother, or between a Ravidasi and a Valmiki. But the major contradiction is the Brahminism and Aryan and Arya, Dravidian and a non-Dravidian, Brahmins and a non-Brahmin. So what is happening is that if we do not address these minor contradictions among ourselves, say among the Bahujans, if we don't address those minor contradictions, they become major.
Yes.
And that has happened today.
But the problem is this. You have to differentiate, first of all, who your friends are and who are your enemies. You have to differentiate what is the major contradiction, what's the minor one. You tackle the major one first, otherwise you will dissipate your energy. Now, out of that major contradiction, let's say it is Brahmanism for the time being. Let's assume that, right? What is the principal aspect of that contradiction? That is very important.
Yeah.
The principal aspect of that major contradiction is that people in India are disunited. That diversity that Hinduatva celebrates, yes, is actually the disunity of the people amongst caste ground, because caste are, as Babasaheb said, inherently anti-national.
Yes.
Then we have the linguistics, we have religious. These are all contradictions, right? But the main aspect of the major contradiction is that people are disunited. And how does it manifest itself? It manifests itself when atrocities are committed on Dalits and nobody comes to the rescue. So that's the theory, and this is the practice. If you ignore the atrocities on the Dalits, or if you ignore the question of women, especially Dalit, Bahujan, Adivasi women, you are actually ignoring the question of majority of women in India. Yeah. And so, in practice, what you have to do, what Indian people have to do, regardless of what caste they belong to, regardless of their religion, regardless of which state they're in, they have to get together and they have to oppose the atrocities on Dalits.
Yeah.
And that is the only way to fight Brahmanism. If we don't do that, by turning a blind eye to this, we are actually making sure that there will be no unity possible in the long run.
I agree with your point when you're saying this thing, but the same thing is happening.
Yes.
Because people are conspicuously keeping silent.
Yes.
And the anti-caste agenda that you are talking about is not even the agenda of those people who should have made it.
It should be the agenda of many people, not just one.
Let
me say
I'm
this.
saying it should have been with the leftists, it should have been with the Bahujan movement.
Let me answer that, right?
Yeah.
One of the most important, if not the important issue in Indian society is the annihilation of caste.
Yes.
It's not going to happen in 10, 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
It will take a lot longer, a century plus. This is the way I feel about it, right? Now, it cannot be done by Dalits alone.
Yes.
Not by Adivasis, because they don't suffer from caste.
Yeah, they don't suffer.
And not by the so-called low-caste Bahujan either. We are going to need everybody's help, because a lot of the Muslims are actually originally from Dalit background.
Yes.
So it's in the interest of Dalits who are really Dalits.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean Dalit businessmen. For them, it is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they made it, and there's nothing in it for them.
In India, is the parallel debate going on, caste and class.
Yes, I'm going to come to that later. No, who needs to destroy caste? This is the question you need to ask. Who wants to keep it? That is the friends and the enemies.
Yeah.
Right? No, one of the biggest thing is that amongst the OBC, the top layer is no different from, let's say, they are the Savarnas, right? They have to bracket it. Now, a layer below that, it might be possible to neutralize some of them, but it won't be possible to neutralize all of them. These are very, very serious issues.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the annihilation of caste is going to take a long time. There is the caste and class contradiction, the contradiction between Ambedkarism and Marxism. Then there is the question of friends who are friends and who are enemies. There's a question of which is the major contradiction. There is the question of which one is a minor, which one we must attack. And there's a question of which is the major aspect of a contradiction. All these are very, very important. And all these things are related to your theory as well as practice. There's a contradiction between theory and practice.
Yes.
There is a contradiction between economic base and superstructure. You can say it's Marxism versus Ambedkarism. Or you can say Ambedkarism is also reflected in Marxism. Marxism is also reflected in Ambedkarism.
Or Buddhism, actually, origins.
People don't see these things because when people take a kind of a polarized viewpoint of the whole thing, then they stop seeing the overall, the big picture. And they're thinking that colored by what happened in history. For example, the history of the communist movement in India. And their thinking also gets colored to an extent of how Ambedkarism is being applied in India and how Marxism has been applied and is being applied. So what that implies is this. Marxists had failed to develop an integrated theory of caste and class in India. They had totally failed. Some people would argue that it's the Brahmanwadi Marxists who had tried to distort Marxism so much that Dalits won't even look at it. Mm-hmm. And we have some Dalits who, I have books here written by some Dalits, and rightly so, they point out what Dange did, what the Mudlipa did, and all the other people, and therefore they don't want to go anywhere near it. Yes. And they will also quote Ambedkar, his Buddha or Karl Marx, to the effect that Babasaheb himself warned us about the dangers of Marxism. But if you read Buddha or Karl Marx very carefully, what Babasaheb is doing is issuing a warning to Dalits. Don't be used by the so-called Marxists.
So he's talking about the communist form of government that he's against, where he said that...
well, he himself says, I think
I'm against the
dictatorship of the proletariat would be a good idea for poor countries. So how do you reconcile those kind of... and how do you reconcile... You asked me about religion, right?
Yes.
No, Buddhism in China and Japan has been actually used to rebel against the Confucian system. It is how you interpret your religion.
But Sikhism, Buddhism in Myanmar and Sri Lanka can be...
Reactionary.
So that means
in Sri Lanka and Ghana, it can be reactionary.
But that means that if religion becomes part of our political structure or patronized by the state,
it must not be allowed to do that, because religion
is
can either be a personal affair,
yes,
or it can also be a socio-political affair.
Yes.
No, socio-political. If religion is being used to fight for people's rights, I don't really care whether it's a mix of this, A, B, C, D, E. I do not care. And that is what all the anti-caste movements in India had done. Even Babasaheb himself went for Buddhism as a weapon to fight Hinduatva. You must remember this. When the progressive ideas predominate, then that is fine. If reactionary ideas predominate in a religious current, then that is not.
Yeah, Babasaheb Buddhism is a very progressive and very modern philosophy.
But if you are going to distort it, if let's say you are middle class or rich Dalit, and you are only interested in meditation, you are not interested in helping other people, you are only interested in getting away mentally from the problem that you face, and you don't want to know about Babasaheb's mission. No, that is not what Babasaheb had in mind. But when he brought in Buddhism,
but it's a very an approach that is like that makes you different from many other friends who talks about that when we blame the communists that you don't speak about the caste system in India and you have completely detached yourself from speaking about the caste. Why is that Ambedkarites, a majority of them, don't want to speak about class?
Because the contradiction of class exists amongst Dalits, and the contradiction of caste exists
among the
Marxists. It is simple as that. Two must be addressed simultaneously.
So the thing is that is ism or any ideological thing that we are fighting or anybody is fighting, is ism meant for dominance?
No, ism is no good for anybody. If you take Marxism, right, as such, Marx said, I'm not a Marxist. As far as I know, I'm not a Marxist. He looked at the way some people were applying Marxism, and he said, I'm not a Marxist. Now, if Babasaheb was alive today, and he would look at some of the Ambedkarite groups and parties, what would he say? He would say, I'm not an Ambedkarite. He stands for something completely different. He stands for the 21st century humanity, not just for the oppressed people in India. He is becoming more relevant to the world stage.
Absolutely.
Yeah? What he's saying is human rights are fundamental.
Individual dignity,
human rights are fundamental. That's what Marx is saying. He's saying that the man is alienated.
Yes.
Why is he alienated? He's oppressed. He doesn't have many rights. All he's got the right for is to go and work in a factory, provide his labor, and get his money. That's all the rights he's got. Now, the problem with the caste system is it is such an extreme form of class system in India, and that's what many people don't appreciate. It is the extreme form of this class system in India that is almost unique. I say almost. There are caste systems like society. Well, the communists had failed to develop an integrated class-caste theory. No, there was, I would say, fairly honorable effort by V.T. Rajshekar Sethi, but I think he was rather mechanical in his approach, and he suffered from a lot of the mistakes that he was accusing other people of. I mean, I will not go into
my problem
Jews of India and all that. Let me come back to that. Then the Marxists took this approach that class is primary and caste is kind of secondary, if you like.
Yeah.
Now, then V.T. Rajshekar Sethi went away from caste-class theory, and then he started putting emphasis on caste war, cultural caste war, which is fine, but it does ignore other things because it doesn't address the contradiction between different castes. It doesn't tell you how the different castes can come together and fight as a class, because when castes are separate, reacting on their own, they don't form a class.
Yes.
It's when they get together and they fight their common interests, then they become a class. So
that is what Anand Teltumre has been saying, I suppose.
No, what he has been saying is that the caste struggle should be embedded in class struggle. He's been saying that for some time in the 1990s and 2000. I know he's changed a little bit now.
He says
He's saying,
he suggested this also, the point you made. He suggested actually.
no, he started off for a long time. He was saying it should be embedded
Okay.
and in class. Now he's saying no annihilation of caste without a revolution. Yes, no revolution without annihilation of caste. I think this is very formalistic. It avoids the Marxist dialectics. It doesn't address the question of when, what is going to be done when. The question is what is to be done now. And what is to be done now is that if all progressive forces do not fight atrocities on Dalits, they will be doing themselves a disfavor. It's not a question of beef lynching today, Dalits and Muslims. They are going to come for everybody.
Yeah, that's true.
When they subdue the Dalits, then the next are the lower order of the OBC, the Bahujans.
Yeah.
So the Bahujans, you asked me the question, can Dalits destroy caste system on their own? No. They will need friends. They will need friends whose interests and Dalit interests coincide.
Yes.
The interests of the Adivasis and Dalits are more and more coinciding. So that is good. The Muslims are also realizing that our interests are the same because there is a Hinduatva menace out there. Now, the Bahujans, or the lower part of the OBCs,
Yes.
have been asleep to this. It is more than anybody else their duty. Without them, the caste system cannot be destroyed in India. Without their cooperation, it would be impossible to destroy that caste system. And this unity will be forged in the future. It's not something that will happen in the next year, next 10 years, next 20 years. It will happen because the contradiction will sharpen.
But sometimes what is happening is that the political system in India, which we have inherited from Britain,
Yes.
this political system, actually we all talk about politicization of things, but Indian politics is actually of depoliticization people. It is depoliticizing people, not politicizing them.
Why should the Indian system want to politicize people?
No.
It is in their interest to keep
So
people
what is happening is
ignorant
that
of
in
the real politics.
depoliticizing, what they are doing is they have pitched, when you have a weapon of caste to counter communalism,
Yeah.
then they have brought subcastes.
Yes.
And the different layers and layers
Yes.
and layers of these identities
No,
fighting
the
it.
question is, how do you counter that?
That is
Teltumle's, should I say Professor Teltumle's formulation doesn't address that issue. It is not enough merely to embed castes within class. They're already there. Every class has caste in it, and every class has
But
caste
no,
in
no,
them.
no.
Those embedded
I'm
things are
also
there.
not discussing Professor Teltumade. I'm discussing what is the Ambedkarite solution also.
No,
Have
there
they
is,
succeeded?
there is no such thing as an Ambedkarite solution on its own. There can never be, in the long run, a pure Ambedkarite solution. There can never be so-called pure Marxist solution. That is an impossibility. Because that is the contradiction. It is not that the end results, end aim of the two are different. They are the same.
But
that
you
is
have
the
to
common ground.
use different strategies.
Where
actually.
do you meet? How do you meet? And what I am of the opinion is that there is a contradiction between Ambedkarism and Marxism.
Mm-hmm.
It is not an antagonistic contradiction. It is a non-antagonistic contradiction. It should be resolved in the same way. And the biggest weapon that Dalit, Bahujan, Adivasis, Muslims, and Marxists have is self-criticism. Till you do self-criticism and say, this is where and it has to be honest, deep down self-criticism. Some people need to do more criticism than others. This is not equal. Because let's face it, the Dalit criticism will be a lower order of magnitude. But the criticism of the left needs to be at much deeper, much higher level.
Yeah, obviously.
And it means that they need to start a cultural revolution within their own ranks if they are to be seen seriously about the question of caste. If they are just trying to fool people, it will not work. It hasn't worked before.
Actually, because
it is going to meet with failure again.
It's because
you cannot give a slogan and ask people to follow it for no reason. We have given a slogan.
But for India, I suppose, because we are talking about the Marxist Ambedkarite binary, but in fact,
it isn't a binary.
No,
this is what I'm saying.
No,
the end results.
but,
it is
no,
not. It's not an antagonistic contradiction.
No,
it's a non-antagonistic.
But what I'm saying is that already in India we had a Fule's revolution, and we had Periyar thing.
Yes.
So I think we have to bring all those aspects also. It should not be confined to Ambedkar versus or Ambedkar and Marx.
No.
We have to see the success
because
of Periyar's movement.
Ambedkarism in itself includes Fule and Periyar's movement.
Yeah, that has to be, because otherwise it will be.
When I say Ambedkarism, I don't exclude these.
Okay.
No, for me, right? What is the importance of Fule, for example? For me, the importance of Fule is that he was the first cultural revolutionary icon that we had in the colonial setting. That was Fule. He showed us the way that Brahmanism can be opposed.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, what is the importance of Periyar? To me, Periyar is the same, except he took a very scientific approach to the whole thing, because he's influenced by communism.
Yeah.
He's not a communist, but he's influenced by communist philosophy, by communist ideology. So what he said is, let us use science to enlighten the masses and fight Brahmanism with it.
He was also influenced by Dr. Ambedkar also, and
Of
Buddhism
course he
also.
was.
Yeah.
But this is what their contribution is. This is what is still relevant. So cultural revolution or cultural revolutionary war of Fule is important in the current setting. Periyar's scientific cultural revolutionary war against Brahmanism is still important. Yes.
So when you are saying
they are not dead. They are living icons. But people have not used them in such way. I haven't come across any Marxist analysis. Maybe it exists somewhere. I haven't come across any Marxist analysis what Fule's movement was, what Periyar's movement was. Yeah. Why is this so? Why haven't Marxists in India analyzed Sikhism?
That is the problem in India, because every ism is confined to the dominant caste that it follows.
No, what I'm saying is, then those people who ignore these movement, Dalit Bahujan movement, Adivasi movement, they should be ditched because they are not fit for the job.
The problem.
I know it's a very strong thing to say, right? If you are not going to look at Indian history, you are not going to look at people's history in India.
Yes.
You are not going to analyze it. You are not going to use the lessons of those. Then the question is, what sort of Marxist are you?
That's true.
What is your function?
But the problem is, if Marxism is used to destroy Brahmanism, then the Brahmins will not be interested in it.
No. That is my point. That we can have Engels, who was from a business background. We can have Lenin, who came from a noble family. Yes? Yes? They can betray their own class.
Yes.
Now, my question is this. Why would a whole group of people would be so willing to betray their own class or caste unless there is an ulterior motive? You see, there is leadership of the left groups, from watered down left to the extreme left, who come from upper caste background, upper class background. Some of them may be very serious, may be genuine, but there are many others who do not address the issues.
Yeah.
And then the question must be asked, why do they not address these issues? And the answer can only be because they are working for the interest of their own caste and class.
See, sometimes,
and it is also the same.
Most of them are not dealing from their communities. See, in India, if you are in, say, village, when you come in a movement, so movement becomes just a kind of political jargons.
Yes.
You know,
so it is not in your interest to do so. So if it's not in your interest, right, then as far as the Dalits and the Bahujans and the Adivasis are concerned, are these friends? Are they enemies? Are they half-half? Are they sort of neutralized?
They want Dalits, Bahujan, everybody together. But
under their command.
Yes. The commander.
This cannot happen.
No, this is
a contradiction. This is a contradiction.
This is
not antagonistic, but in the future, in half a century from now on, it will become an antagonistic contradiction.
See, the problem is that now many of them are realizing it. It's also a factor. But far,
I will stop you there with that question. Some of them are realizing them. Some really don't want to know. Some are playing for time. There are many different contradictions operating within the left groups as well.
See.
And where I'm coming from is this. First of all, in order to make sure that your practice is correct, you need to make sure your theory is correct.
Yes.
If your theory is wrong, your practice will most certainly be wrong. Many times you can have some practice which is correct and your theory may not be so good.
Yeah.
But you
that's
can
true.
still do the
That
right
I-
thing.
that
No, this point is very much applicable to Ambedkar. Some of his historical writings were not correct.
Yeah. That's
Right? But
that's true.
do we then say, and therefore we throw away all of Ambedkarism? No.
No.
What we say is, my viewpoint is this, that some of the information on history or archaeology or genetics, etc., was simply not available. He was doing the very best theory of class and caste. It has to be an integrated theory. It has to take into account history. It has to take into account the diversity of India, the nationality question, the language question, the state question, all of these things. But most importantly, Dalit, Adivasi, Bahujan question and Muslim question has to be top of the list. How
Yes,
does
sir.
it see these things that way? Once you get your theory right, then you can get your practice right. Otherwise, you can do some good things with practice. I'm not saying that. You can be intuitive and you can say, let's suppose the atrocities at practical level. That is good. You may get stuck at that level. You may
Yes,
never
yes,
see
yes.
beyond that.
Of course.
You may never see beyond that. There will be contradictions. And if you don't know how to solve these, then you will go astray. And then you might set the movement back.
Yes.
So
No,
I think it's very, very important to have a correct theory. And
Actually,
in
that,
India, what has happened is Dalits and Adivasis and Bahujans and Muslims, they intuitively know what is good for them and what isn't. But they don't have the theory. Because it is very, very difficult
see,
for this group of people to have the knowledge.
no, the thing is, what is happening is that in India, broadly, the impact of Ambedkarism has grown among the Dalit communities a lot.
Yes.
Now, the Dalits celebrated Periyar also and Phule also. Unfortunately, Periyar among the backward classes in North India has not reached. Phule among the backward classes in North India has not reached. He is reaching now, but the problem is a majority of the political leaders in North among the backward communities were like Ramano Lohia. Now Lohia's whole philosophy, Lohia can be a political leader. In fact, Lohia wanted to join RPI at the end of the when the things are now very clear that Dr. Ambedkar was in touch of some of these veteran socialists like Mr. Gore and Mr. Acharya.
But nothing came out of it.
Nothing
came out
he
of
passed
it.
away, no, actually.
Yes, I know.
See, that is another history. I'll also narrate that.
Yes.
But what I am saying is that there is a problem with that what we call Samajwadi system, Samajwadi political philosophy in the North India, which spread among the backward communities like Mulayam Singh Yadav, Nitish Kumar, Lalu Yadav. They all talk about Jayaprakash Narayan and Ramano Lohia.
They want to use this thing for their own ends.
But none of them. Lalu is now a little bit of using Phule, but not that much, because if using Phule means rejecting Varnashram Dharma and all symbols of it. But he will have celebration of all festivals and he will play with the gallery at the same point of time. So Phule and Periyar are very, very important if we have to spread this wing among the OBCs and Dalits. And I would say to that extent, even anybody, as you are saying, any progressive upper caste who want to come into that kind of a thinking has to think of that way also.
I think you raised a number of questions. First of all, I don't see Ambedkar, Periyar and Phule as separate entities. I see these as a continuation of one into the other. Yeah?
Yes.
I see the continuation of an ideology and a philosophy. Now, which class leads it at any particular moment in time is another matter. Now, with Phule, we know that he belonged to Mali community. So the contractor group are active. So Phule is progressive for his age. And that is why he's venerated by masses of people, at least in certain parts of India.
Yes.
But Phule's followers, yes, Ambedkar lamented the fact that they had gone and joined Sethi and Bhattis.
Yeah.
Yes, that is a negative aspect.
It is the Dalits who have taken Phule forward, actually, if you see that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Dalits recognize intuitively
Yes.
that Phule was progressive
Yes.
for his times, so they refused to let him go. His true ideas, his true ideology, Dalits are refusing to let that go. And the same way with Periyar. Dalits want to, but the problem with Periyar is this, again, as I said, Sethi and Bhattis, right? Tamil nationalism, taken to its extreme, then denies the existence of caste, ultimately. Because you're Tamil versus non-Tamils. And all Tamils are equal, but that's not true.
Yeah, but Periyar never said that thing.
He never said that.
But today...
But the way he's being applied, because the people who followed Periyar but also belong to a certain class.
They are very influential class, no
yes,
doubt.
Of course. Yeah. And but historically, they were progressive in relation to Brahmanism. Yeah. And so we must see them in their historical setting.
Yes.
We must not get carried away with idealism and say, this is what Periyar stood for, you see. You can use Phule, Periyar, Ambedkar to your own ends. Yes. People do use it. No, the historical question is, why could not Ambedkar unite with the so-called backward caste in his own lifetime? That's a very important question. And the answer is this, that is the historical trajectory. Ambedkar was the most radical. He fought against Gandhi. He fought against Nehru and Gandhi and Congress. He wanted separate representation. He wasn't given that, but he fought for it. Yeah? No, he didn't have many friends. He didn't have the backward caste coming to him and say, we join with you, right? At the round table, right? He didn't have the Muslims coming to him because Muslims have their own class system. Yeah? He didn't have the Sikhs because the Sikhs decided that they would throw their lot in with the Hindus. He was alone in this struggle. He did what he could. And actually, the so-called other backward castes may have won something in that, right, for themselves. But in the long run, they lost. This is the logic of class and caste in India. And that is why we have a situation where, unless you look in history and say, why wasn't that unity possible? What were the contradictions?
There are a lot of...
you will not have a unity. Unity and struggle go together. Let me repeat this. Unity and struggle go together. If you are going to unite with somebody, you many times have to struggle against their incorrect ideas. If, let's say, the Bahujans want a unity with the Dalits, a real unity of some sort, then the Bahujans have to kick out Brahmanism within their ranks.
That is the important point you're saying. That is the point I was coming up without, and that is where I'm saying. That
if they don't do that, then what sort of unity is it? It's like this, then saying, well, the Sikhs are against the caste system. In theory, yes. Yeah, you cannot have your cake and eat it.
Yes.
That's a fundamental thing in India.
So that means when we're talking about anti-caste movement of success, and we say that it has to be a movement of all, 90% of people or 95% of people who are victim of it, particularly,
they have to strike the first blow, and they have done so.
And but they have not done so that powerfully. Because
but they are also limited by their history. They are limited by the society.
What I'm saying is Brahmanism is not
many blows as possible.
Brahmanism is not survived by Brahmins alone. Brahmanism is in rituals, in practices, in customs.
So
and
therefore,
culture.
it survives to the lowest level.
Yeah.
We may think, and that is my argument for a cultural revolution everywhere in India, because the Brahmanism operates from top to bottom.
My point was, I'm coming to a point that this is your space.
Yes.
I can't claim every space, but the space which I own should be de-Brahmanized completely, and that is what I'm saying.
That is. I'm sorry, but that's a fallacy.
Why?
You cannot de-Brahmanize everything. I'll tell you why. This de-Brahmanization, right, will not be one-off thing.
I'm saying
de-Brahmanization.
I'm saying is our own spaces, spaces where we work.
It isn't possible. It isn't possible.
Why?
It's impossible. You can do as much as you can, but you cannot de-Brahmanize completely. I am looking at overall level, not personal level. Personally, some people will de-Brahmanize themselves more than others. depending on their circumstances and their own individual willpower.
When they will speak politically and then they will do...
You will have extremes. You will have some people who are complete hypocrites, right? Like they will go to the Kali Mata temple on their way to the,
and then they will
the Communist Party
also,
meeting, right?
Or Communist Party meeting.
Yes,
whatever.
yes. And there will be others, right, who want to de-Brahmanize themselves, but they will not be able to do that because they can't struggle that much, given the confines. But I am not talking about individuals.
No, I'm not. I'm saying.
I'm talking about different classes.
saying if we have 90% Dalit Bahujan.
Yes.
And we say this Brahmanism. Brahmanism is the supremacy of caste system. That is one thing.
There's many aspects of Brahmanism.
But see,
not one, but many aspects.
No, but there are. This is the biggest aspect is that supremacy of castes and isolation of caste from each other. So
yes,
when we say
many different levels,
we say that 90% Bahujans are together, shouldn't there be a campaign at least in this 90% structure, in 90% space, we start the anti-caste, like we start mixing up people, marriages, all those kind of things, which actually will ultimately see end of caste system is end of Brahmanism.
You can propose a question: if people have been marrying within their caste for a long time, why should they suddenly stop doing it and marry across?
See,
no, the only time people marry, there are such marriages. There may be a love marriage.
Yeah.
There may be a second marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It may be that this particular, partner has got more money or more connections. That also happens. People marry for all sorts of reasons. But predominantly, people marry within their own caste.
And that's why the purity of the caste system maintains.
Yes, they do that, right?
So it will
because
continue.
It will continue, but it will be broken, not suddenly. It will be broken in stages. It's a dialectical process. It will be damaged in stages. It will be broken in stages. And it will take a long time, maybe a century, maybe plus. There will not be just one single cultural revolution. You are going to have to start low and go high. You see what I'm saying? For example, it may be that it will happen first more in the cities. Yeah. Then it will spread to the countryside. It is unlikely that it will happen where Brahmanism is the strongest. It will happen where Brahmanism is the weakest. And it will happen in accordance with how strong the cultural revolutionary waves are. It won't be one wave. It will be many different waves. Here is the fully developed caste society. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say that we are here at the present.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the time of, let's say, Manu. I could go further back.
Okay.
And here is before is the incipient stage where the caste system started. So this is birth, development of the caste system.
Mm.
If we turn this curve upside down, that's what the scientists and engineers use. It's called failure rate curve. How failures occur. It applies to everything, from a mouse to a bacteria to the sun and galaxies. This is how things grow, develop, stay where they are, more or less, and then they get annihilated, destroyed, or dispersed, or whatever. Yeah? This is a child, and this is where the child is actually born, somewhere here. Not here, but here. Because if we turn this upside down, the child is very vulnerable to death.
I don't know that I agree with the point.
And in old age, this is childhood, and this is old age, right?
Mm.
And this is adult, more or less, right? And here the failure rate is very low. Here the failure rate is very high. Here the failure rate is very high. So this is the caste system as it was conceived and born as a child. Yeah? And this is where it has been for the past, let us say, 2,500 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
And we are currently somewhere here. I'm not saying we are here.
Mm-hmm.
We are somewhere there. We're going up toward annihilation of caste. That's in the future. That may be 100 years.
Okay.
Plus.
So,
now, this is not going to come smoothly like this. It's going to be stages. It's going to be up and down like this. Yeah. It won't go. But if you draw a graph through it,
but there will be obviously there are scientific
so nothing
scientific changes.
Nothing can be destroyed in one go.
No, that I agree.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? Let's say the land question. Yeah, there will be time when we are fighting against Brahmanism, but we're also fighting against for land question.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously.
Which comes when it depends on the local circumstances.
Obviously.
So these things cannot happen. Here this will happen. Here this will happen. That is too mechanical. And that is the difference. That's the difference, right?
One side we say that when the industrialization comes and everybody has
we've seen that
economy.
Doesn't happen. We have seen untouchables in Japan.
And that's why we are saying
it doesn't happen like that. So, you see where the mechanical materialism or mechanical Marxism breaks down is that even in Japan you have Bakunin. That is fully developed capitalism. And Mao Zedong said, well, what is so big about land reform? He said Napoleon did that. MacArthur did that in Japan. That didn't destroy, many other relations. And it is true. You can have some sort of land reform, but it won't change much. But on the other hand, cultural revolution with land reform, with other things, there are many things. There is a gender question. Now, how do you handle the question of Dalit Adivasi women? That is not only a gender question, that is also a Dalit Adivasi question. All these things are linked. And what makes the diamond of Hinduism strong is the linkages between all these things.
The diamond of Hinduism strong is also because of certain weaknesses among ourselves also.
Yes.
Because if that's what I say, if we don't make that strong, like the women question is a very, very, very. Now we are in UK.
Yes.
We are discussing caste here.
Yes.
And among the whole people who are fighting against the caste system, what is the representation of women in the Ambedkarite movement among the
minuscule is the answer. Yeah, minuscule. But if you look at the leadership level, very few. You could count them in your hand, right? But if you attend a demonstration, you will see that there are more women there than men sometimes. So why is this? Because it's the existence of patriarchy, Brahminical ideas within our own community.
Because men just bring women at the meeting gathering and say, "Chalo bhai, rally mein jana."
No, they want to go. It's not as if they're being told by their husbands. Many of them do understand what it's all about. They do listen to the speeches and they do know what is going on. But they are being restricted into coming into, into leadership level, or being, they're being restricted into taking part, in the organization and so on.
So there are two things. When we say you mentioned it earlier also. Who doesn't want to annihilate caste? Is the interest groups among the Brahmins, or are there interest groups among the Bahujans or Dalits also?
Who doesn't want to?
Who don't want to demolish Brahmanism? Who are the people who don't?
Well, obviously, the upper caste don't want to demolish Brahmanism, and obviously, any top class in any caste, in any religion, in any ethnic group, in anywhere really, state level, those who are at the top, they have absolutely no interest in demolishing caste. Why should they? Because they will benefit from it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So let us take
otherwise you'll face.
So they have no interest in demolishing caste. Why should they?
Yeah,
even the top layer of Adivasis. Why should they want to demolish?
Yeah, there are feudal Adivasis actually. Many places.
But you see, the Adivasis are not homogeneous category. Yeah, so therefore, it becomes very important to have an analysis of caste and classes in Indian society. This is one of the toughest things that if you like, the message of the people and their friends will face in the future. And that is why I say the theory is very, very important. Otherwise, we'll get lost in the detail.
Yeah.
We will say this is this is this. Now, any statement about the caste system can be contradicted by another equally generalized statement. So we will get into this quagmire from which we will not be able to get out.
I want to come to the very important question of the anti-caste discrimination law in Britain. And that was passed when the last government was in power, but it was not implemented. And now there are lots of problems coming up, and we have intellectuals in Britain, the caste intellectuals, who are writing or pressurizing the government, bringing new theories about caste system in India. Some
Which
Prakash Shah kind
intellectual
of
are these you're talking about?
Prakash Shah kind of people.
Are these from the sort of more on the Hindu side, or the?
I think you must have been knowing about them.
Well, there are different ways. You see, there are different people saying different things, right?
They are writing about there were no. Some people are saying there is no caste system that exists in India. Some people are saying it is wrong. This that.
Some people are saying it was brought in by the British.
Yeah.
I mean, the RSS have even defended their viewpoint
So
at Oxford Union. This is all part and parcel of the same struggle.
How are you fighting the distortion that the newfound intellectual elite of the Brahmins is doing to the entire theme that caste doesn't exist in India or there was no untouchability?
We were talking about the anti-caste legislation in UK.
In UK, yeah.
And I was saying that this is very much a David and a Goliath situation,
Yes.
where David is obviously Dalit, and Goliath is the Goliath of Hinduatva in the Diaspora. Now, the various Hindu groups who are here under the cover of VHS and other RSS and so on, they are obviously very well organized. They are very well connected.
Well funded.
They have lots of money at their disposal. I was in the process of giving you an example. There is a group called Foil Vedanta. And you know, Vedanta is a multinational company, active in India, in Nyamgari, taking over Adivasi land, polluting it, and all that kind of stuff. And it's based in London. Now, recently I found out that in my own area, a number of Hindu organizations had got together, brought some Adivasis from the plains, and put them as an exhibit. Tribal India. Come and dance with the tribals. Come and play with the toys made.
But they might have brought because of Vedantas was thrown away from Niyamgiri.
Exactly. So this is a kind of a counter attack to justify their existence, justify their exploitation and polluting, the environment. And
even yesterday there is a huge judgment by Supreme Court.
Yes.
Against mining.
Yes, there was just a few months, not even a month back, about a month back, there was a hearing against Vedanta.
Yes.
About polluting in Zambia. In the High Court, which I attended for 2 days.
Okay.
Yes. It was purely a coincidence that I saw a poster which said Tribal India.
Okay.
And I recognized the photograph of this Dongria Khond woman.
Okay.
She actually, I investigated, and she turned out to be an activist.
Oh.
They had used her picture without her permission.
Okay.
So I informed Foil Vedanta, Samendra Das. I said, "Do you know this is going on?" He said, "No." I said, "Okay." So I photographed this poster and I sent it to him.
Okay.
And then they wrote to the Parks Department of this area and said, "Do you realize that you are actually supporting this function? And this is the background behind it." And now that is under investigation.
Oh, that's a good, very important thing.
Sometimes we do not even know the kind of things that are going on. No, the important thing about the anti-caste legislation is this. Dalit people have risen to the challenge in this country. Dalit women have risen to the challenge. Progressive intellectuals have risen to the challenge. They did not need to go this far, but they have. But the tragedy is this, that we are a mirror image of India here.
Yes.
Every political party and group is represented here. If there are, say, 3 different varieties of Congress party, let's say at a certain point in time, then they are also represented in this country. If there is CPI, CPIM, and CPIML, then they are also represented here in one way or the other. And it's the same with the Dalit groups. And I said earlier that the Indian government has people in every group. So Dalit people are not united. But notwithstanding that, they had come out in numbers. They had tried to get some sort of unity going. And even when there was no unity, right, when they found out the others are doing something, they then joined in because they felt they didn't want to be left behind. And it took up a momentum of its own. So to a large extent, they were very successful in making this an issue in the UK. That was a positive aspect, that they made caste discrimination an issue and caste atrocities and discrimination an issue in India, an issue.
Mm-hmm.
They made that here. This is the positive aspect of that.
Yes.
But unfortunately, we are nowhere near getting an anti-caste legislation in concrete terms. And of course,
Is it that after
there is no reason why British government should pass such a strong legislation in this country. If anything, it is in their interest to have a legislation which is very much watered down or non-existent, but make it look like as if British government is interested or in fighting caste discrimination in this country. You see, Dalits had a big fight on their hand. First of all, it was being denied. That was their best tactics, that it doesn't exist. Caste system doesn't simply exist in this country. So Dalits had to go to some white intellectuals and others and try to prove that de facto it does exist. There's a prima facie evidence that it exists. Then they wanted to make this caste an aspect of race.
Yes.
And it goes on like that. And they wanted to put it on the back burner.
But is it also true that after the rise of religious right in India, politically, like after, say, in very unambiguous terms, after the rise of Narendra Modi in Delhi, internationally, the government, all those who tried to prohibit him coming from UK or USA, or
he was banned at one time by USA government. Yes.
And now the same government are actually going out of their way to encourage him, promote him, and somewhere the chums of Hindutva, I would say, the all those political right wingers in UK or USA are or have started pressurizing the government, and under this pressure, these governments have started
backtracking.
Backtracking.
Yes, I mean that's business for you. I mean, in Britain we have the Mother of Parliament, but Britain is always open for business.
Yeah.
If you look at their business contacts in different parts of the world, business takes priority. Be it Saudi Arabia, Kazakhstan, wherever. So we should be under no illusion that somehow British government will enact a legislation prohibiting caste discrimination.
Because 5 years back they were interested. 3 years back they were interested.
They were interested.
But now the political change.
But they have to look at the whole package. Again, what is in it for us?
Yeah.
What is in it for us? If Narendra Modi has come to power, who was prohibited from even entering USA, then he's welcome, and then he's welcome here. That is the power of money. That's why I said that this is the David and Goliath battle.
There is the survival of fittest also.
In what way?
In what way? Because the upper caste people will always exert pressure to the government board, because now
they will.
They have the power to go against the democratic pattern also, because the money power.
They will keep on doing that. But the other aspect of that same thing is this, that in this country, more and more ordinary British people, and I make a distinction between British people and British government, are becoming aware of the caste system in India, about the nature of caste discrimination in this country. And it's no longer given that, they will assume that everybody's kind of equal. They've suspected before that caste system is there. But what they didn't know was to what extent it operates even in this country, you see. And that is very important, because British people must be educated as well in this. It's important for the people in India to know that people outside are well aware of They are aware of what is going on.
That's it.
And actually, to a certain extent, I mean, you can be critical of people the non-governmental organization. But
But
they
the
had a
work is
good
real.
they had a good role to play in, for
Definitely.
example, the Durban Conference Against Racism, and out of that came this kind of talk that there should be an caste discrimination the anti-caste discrimination legislation in this country. So it operates like at an interactive
Yeah,
level.
but that is the one reason, because despite all the criticism against the non-governmental organization,
Yes.
after Narendra Modi coming to power, he went against
He did.
them
Yes.
selectively and targeted them. And today we are in a crisis in India, where after the civil society NGOs were targeted, then the academic institution, then the
Yes.
political parties selectively.
Writers and so on.
Yeah.
This is
And they have
the
been-
aspect which the much of the left in India does not understand.
Yes.
Is that everything has a negative and everything has a positive
See,
aspect to
for
it.
many left academic world, there was NGOs being funded by the West. So this is another.
That is true. That is true. But the question is how to unite the greatest number of people for a very, very common cause.
See,
And then further it.
the RSS used they get the maximum funding abroad.
Yes?
They are the tens of organizations
Yes?
which are registered in USA and
Yes.
UK and pumping money, spreading hatred, whatever
Yes.
you can say. They have no nothing. They want their own organization, whether money coming from England or money coming from France or
Yes.
Germany or USA or Canada or anything.
Yes.
But in the academic circle or in the left circle, NGOs were a kind of people but not welcome, and they always felt this conspiracy theory, or these are the Western plant, and that theory that helped RSS to target these organizations which are working for the human rights, Dalit rights, tribal rights, land. So these were the organization, these were the specific target. If you are working on the land question, if you are working with the forest question, if you are working with the Dalits or working with the tribal, you will be targeted first.
Yes.
And after that they went after the student, and then they went after even today the academia is under the target.
Yes.
So they are doing it selectively.
Yes.
But for them there is fine, but only critiquing the other side.
Yes.
So you only start discussing about ourselves, our wrongs, our problems, and you save yourself from any kind of a scrutiny. How do we come at a common platform? What are the conditions?
I think it's up to the people in India to decide that. What should be the common kind of platform. But I would say myself, on personal opinion, that wherever the contradiction is such that it does the most damage to us, we should resist that.
Yeah, of course.
First of all, we are not in a situation where we can attack the enemy at the moment. We can't attack openly. What we have to do is to limit the damage that has already been done.
Yes.
Earlier on you mentioned, how these things were not taken care of.
Yeah.
And as a result, now Hinduatva elements are running
Yeah.
wild in India, from beef lynching to
Oh,
murder of
everything.
writers to whatever. And they have this hydra-headed manifestation
Yes.
in the diaspora, in UK, in USA.
Yeah.
Yeah? As I said, it is a Dalit and Goliath thing, but you can minimize the damage. And I would say that one of the most sharpest, acutest way we get damage is practices of untouchability and atrocities.
Yeah.
These atrocities, if you are serious about the annihilation of caste, about class struggle in India, you have to resist these
resistance.
atrocities
Yeah.
at individual level, at collective level, and you have to launch a common cultural revolution which will help people to come together to fight these atrocities. That way we protect ourselves. Otherwise, we will be taken one at a time, and there will be nobody left.
That is a very important point that you say. What is the suggestion you would like to make to the Ambedkarites, whether in UK or in India?
I would say,
what role should they be playing now?
I would say that the annihilation of caste is a very long-term struggle. It is not something that can be done in decades. It will take a century plus, maybe 2 centuries, Nobody has a crystal ball. And I would say that there are many people out there who are trying to mislead you, who have misled you in the past. Having said that, you have to find common ground with people. History has proved that that is not only a possibility, it's a necessity, it's a possibility. That we cannot take a kind of a confrontational attitude. We cannot take a what I call a rigid attitude. We have to be flexible. But we have to recognize our friends and our enemies, who they are. And we have to recognize enemies not only in the enemy's camp, but we have to recognize enemies in our own camp. That's very important.
I think that is the point I always admired about what Rajshekhar used to say. I respect honest enemy, yes, but detest the dishonest friend.
Yes, there is a lot of what I call dust of battleground, a battlefield, the dust of battlefield out there. So it is very difficult to see at the moment who's enemy, who's friend, who stands where. So you have to actually, if you like, knit your eyebrows, develop critical thinking,
yes,
develop a theory, and then act on that, whether you are in India or you are here. And the good thing is that Dalit people are very, very wise. The masses of the people are very wise. You can't fool them over a long time.
They won't get fooled all the time, obviously.
You can't fool them. They do certain things they do because of the circumstances force them into that path. In the long term, they know who stands where. It's just that any leadership who comes around and say to them, I will give you a rose garden tomorrow, they don't trust that man. If somebody comes around and says, I will give you blood, sweat, tears, sacrifice, suffering, then they say, this man is honest. You see. But I would say unite with anybody you can unite on a common platform. And look at annihilation of caste as a long-term, a kind of a century-long task.
What is your difference on the annihilation of caste issue with Arundhati Roy's writing? With Arundhati's writing?
I think she only addresses this issue in 3 sentences at the end of her book. Mm-hmm. Most of the book is devoted to the historical annihilation of caste in Pune Pact and mm-hmm. Babasaheb and Gandhi. Mm-hmm. It's only right at the end that she devotes 3 sentences to this issue. And what she's saying is that the annihilation of caste, just paraphrasing her, won't be possible till Dalits learn how to criticize capitalism and imperialism, mm-hmm. and the left learns to criticize them vis-a-vis, Ambedkar's criticism of the left, right? Otherwise, it isn't possible. Now, if she was seriously concerned about the annihilation of caste, mm-hmm. then she wouldn't have gone to the historical document and written a couple of hundred commentary on it. Mm-hmm. Because this document is freely available from Columbia University. Yes, I have a book here somewhere.
Oh, this is a very old document.
By Dr. D'Souza. Yeah. He's a Christian, and he has reproduced this document here.
This is so many people.
And he brings it up, so this is done. And you can see commentary on annihilation of caste on the Columbia website. So if she was really serious, she would have said, what are the problems, what are the issues, current issues about the annihilation of caste? Then she should have gone to some depth. But what she's done in an implicit way is to draw attention to some of the left books, for example, Teltumle's Dalits and Imperialism, mm-hmm. and Scripting the Change, mm-hmm. by Anuradha Gandhi. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like pointing a finger, toward those things, and that is not adequate. What you need is a serious theoretical, analytical analysis of the development of the Indian caste system, and the movements launched against it, and the reason for failures of all these movements, and what needs to be done in the future, what is the theoretical foundations of annihilation of caste, and then how can you implement it? So that is what the book should have addressed, and she has failed to do so.
So you're trying to address in your book, the planned book, these issues.
Well, I'm planning 2 books actually. I don't know how far I'll go with these. The first one is very nearly complete, and this is the critique of Arundhati Roy's The Doctor and the Saint.
Okay, yeah.
She has tried to create an impression that Babasaheb somehow, in some parts, is dated, and that he uses the language of eugenics, and that he's somehow touchy about certain aspects of this in his personal life, and that he gave away Adivasi lands, and all these arguments do not stand scrutiny. If you go back to the primary sources, in some instances even secondary sources, you don't even have to go to primary sources, you know that she has actually twisted Babasaheb's what he has said on eugenics. Babasaheb was trying to criticize eugenics, race theory, Aryan invasion, and so on, and she has actually twisted it to mean completely different.
Yeah. That point is many people can be all Ambedkarite knows those positions also.
That is correct, but nobody so far has given a detailed response. They have said this is wrong, but they haven't said why it is wrong. They haven't given quotations from relevant reference work to say.
But shouldn't we also be like, why should we need to give her a response? Can't we just
because she needs to be exposed not only amongst the Dalits, she needs to be exposed amongst others, as she called them.
Why? Many people say that she is honestly doing the work, and she is not claiming that she is the leader of the Dalits or she is writing for the Dalits. She has not claimed it.
No, but she has no right to distort Babasaheb's character in the West. She has tried to demolish Gandhi, which is correct. She has brought Ambedkar to the forefront to certain group of leaders. But in the process of doing so, one commentator has said this book is a cannon fodder for Dalits to join the Next Light movement. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I think that is going too far.
No.
But having said that, she knows where her sympathies lie, and that is where she's coming from. Now, is it running?
Yeah, it's running.
Okay. The second part, I had intended to make the book in 2 parts, but I think it's going to be 2 separate books. I'm hoping to establish links between Ambedkarism and Marxism. The book is critical of historical Marxists in India.
Okay.
It isn't as if you can have a composite Ambedkarism Marxism. It is not possible. It's like genetically splicing 2 ideologies together.
Okay.
You see, caste system is rather like HIV/AIDS.
Yes, it's very difficult here to diagnose, and
it attacks your immune system.
Yes.
It attacks your unity. There are other similarities in science.
Yes.
Caste is like gravity. We all gravitate toward our own caste.
So the other book is on this, basically.
Yes. Caste system, you can say Ambedkarism is like quantum mechanics in physics.
Yeah.
And Marxism is like Einstein's theory of relativity, general relativity. And these 2 disciplines in physics do not see eye to eye with each other. They are in contradiction with each other. They also complement each other. One is reflected in the other, just like Ambedkarism and Marxism. There is a contradiction, and there are heated debates and arguments. So the annihilation of caste is going to be as complex as finding a unified theory in physics. But it will be done.
So that is what we are thinking of. That so I hope that your book comes out, and we'll have more debate on that when the whole your new theorization comes out. So I'm sure that many of the people will have a critique of it. Many people will see a new attempt to bring Marxism and Ambedkarism together. So many people look these issues with suspicion also.
Yes, this is good, because once somebody attacks you, then you know where that person stands. That it is not a bad thing to be attacked by the enemy. It's a good thing. Even before I had put pen to paper, RSS organizer has said nefarious attempts are being made to compile Ambedkarism and Marxism together. So the question arises, why are they so afraid of it? They know that this is probably the combined solution. Yeah. So there will be some people who will question my reason for doing so. And my reason for doing so is because I have studied both of these for almost like 40, 50 years now. And I could not answer many questions. And this is the way for me to be providing this answer to myself. How do you annihilate caste is the central question. And for that, if I have to go to the end of the world, I will do so. If I have to make use of Ambedkarism, I will do so. If I have to make use of Marxism, I'll do so. If I find Ambedkarism is lacking, I'll throw it out of the window. If I find Marxism is lacking, I'll throw it out of the window. For me, Ambedkarism and Marxism are tools that a scientist, a philosopher uses for their own ends. No more than that. Once it becomes an ism, it's dead. It's got no life.
Yeah, so that is,
you cannot go further.
Yeah, so that is the important point that you have said, that it is a tool to actually a liberation of people.
Yes.
And I hope that your book will definitely bring new ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It is a pleasure.